What's going on, guys? Welcome to Cruising with Kevin. Today I bought this C10 square body, a 79 Chevy square body C10 from California. Did a bunch of mechanical work on it so far, took it around the block a few times, but basically the bulk of what we're going to be doing in this video is paint and body. We're going to show you how to do it basically as a Saturday night special and something you can kind of do at home in your driveway, whatever. It's not going to be perfect. We're going to just go through some basic bondo and dings and dents and holes and rust and all that kind of stuff, and we're going to put it all together and try to make this truck look better than it did. This is not going to be a perfect truck. We're basically going to make it a driver, call it a 30-foot or whatever you want to call it or whatever, but basically make it so that it's like respectable, and we're saving it basically from being scrapped because nobody else would have saved this truck. So let's get at it, guys. Got the truck behind me here. So if you guys notice when I brought it home, there was a lot of like this little white spray all over the place here. I already started working on this thing a little bit here this morning, just testing some stuff out. So how this is right here, this entire side was like this. And so originally what I was going to do was just buff that out. You can see in the bed here, I got some new tires for it. The wheels will be a surprise once I get that far here. But I was going to just buff all this stuff out. I don't know what he was doing. I guess there were some scratches or whatever. I have no idea. There's some different color spray on the roof and things like that. You could see up there, there's like some different color spots where he took like a cream color and tried to spray it. But it's all over the place here. Even here you can kind of see it's a different color. And I noticed the other side, I think this bed side's been changed on the other side. So there's a lot of whiskey dents in this thing, so it's not going to be perfect. And so I guess, like I said, originally I was just going to spruce it up a little bit just to kind of make it look a little bit better and kind of be uniform color. But there's like a lot of this just like, if you look really close, how it's just kind of surface rust like that, just barely poking through. And I thought, well, I could probably buff the majority out. That'll come back pretty quick in the humidity, like where I live here. I might actually keep this truck for a little while, I'm not sure, but what I want to actually do here is paint this truck. So I ordered paint from Summit Racing. I'm not going to make it perfect. What I kind of, the intention here is again to kind of show, this is kind of when I first did my first green truck there, the very first video I ever did, and I didn't do it very well because I didn't have good equipment, didn't know what I was doing, no editing software or whatever. But the intention of that was to show you guys what like a kid in school could throw together for like a very affordable price. Like I paid $1,500 for this truck. I bought these wheels and tires for $400. I'm going to give it a tune-up. It's needed a battery, which I got for super cheap. Some things like that, but we did the brakes you saw there. So I'm going to do the paint. And again, I'm not going to make it perfect. There's holes in this thing. There's dents I'm probably going to miss. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to look a lot better than it did. Tidy up the interior a little bit and just kind of give it like a, hey, it could be like a driver without having to worry about it too much or whatever, kind of like my green truck was. It wasn't perfect, but it looked way better than when we started, and that's kind of what I think what I'm going to go for with this truck. So I've got this little cordless sander here. That's what I've been kind of using to take some of this off. And so what I've never tried before, and I'm not sure if I'm going to do this yet, is I've never tried doing single stage over single stage. People have told me that you can do that, and that's kind of the great part about it. I'm not sure if I want to try to attempt that or not without actually putting some primer on it first. I'm 50-50 about it. We've got like a lot of humidity. It's been like anywhere from like 75 to 95% humidity. It's been raining every single day here. It rains and then it clears up, and rains and then it clears up. So it's been like raining a lot here. Rivers are full to the brim here. So yeah, so I'm not going to record a whole bunch of this because it's not going to be very exciting watching me sand for hours to try to kind of do this. I'm going to have to put some Bondo in places and things like that, but I'll show you some of it as I go along. I'm just not going to it's not going to be a 2-hour bodywork video. It's not what this is about. It's just kind of give you guys an idea of what you can start with and how much you can kind of end up with in the end here. So I'll show you the color once we get to the point where we're going to spray this thing, and we'll go from there. putting some cardboard back here so you can see this is going to be bondoed in here, and I just want a place for the bondo to press up to so you're not like basically filling an empty hole here. So just kind of working on shoving something in there. I have different ways of doing it. Sometimes I'll take like a light screen mesh, or even just like you can use like house screen or whatever you want there anyways. So this is just a cheap way of doing it if you don't want to weld metal in it, which I'm not going to here. So that's my plan. Just wanted to show you guys that you guys can do this by hand too. Like, you don't have to have power tools. It helps for sure, but I've just got like this is just a flexible kind of a foam sand block here. It actually helps for the curves and stuff like that. And I don't know, this is probably about, I'd say this is probably like 120 grit, maybe a little less aggressive, 180, something like that. You can kind of see here, just going along here. Some of this sprayed on stuff, it comes off pretty easy here. So again, if you got too aggressive of sandpaper, when you spray your primer, you're going to see all those scratches. So you have to think about that. So you're probably going to have to go back over this afterwards to not be able to see all those imperfections. But this truck has so much of that, like really the right thing to do here probably would be to take this thing right down to the metal. But I really don't like doing that. I've never had great success taking it down to the metal. So I've done it a few times and I never had good success with it. So I don't do that anymore. But this kind of gives you an idea. Like I said, this is just a little bit of hand sanding there, and you can see how far that goes. So like I said, I'm just working away at it here slow. All right, my wife went and got me some 6-inch. So this is hook and loop, which is not the right, because hook and loop is actually designed for, it's supposed to have holes that line up here to vent it out to a bag, but it'll work. I actually had a 7-inch on here and it worked too. But so I kind of went over top of this just a little bit there, and you can already see that it took all the scratches pretty much out. So this is 220 I got on here right now. That's what I say. It, my personal opinion, 220 is generally not too rough. It wears so fast when you start using it. The other thing is, if you're going to be using a little bit of water with it, usually you can get sandpaper that's meant for water. I don't think this one is, but we're going to just give it a little try anyway, because I'm trying to keep the dust down in here. So we'll give her a go here. I'm still fighting off this sickness a little bit here. Just going to put just a little bit of water on it here to see, just to, like I said, keep the dust down. Alright guys, so what I ended up doing here was I set up my I got those like gigantic industrial fans. I put one right by the door, and I just cracked the door here a little bit. And I've got a fan blowing behind me, so it's kind of forcing it out, because remember again here, I don't want my garage full of dust. I don't even really want to be doing this in here, but it is like cooking outside. So basically just to try to keep the dust down, attached garage again, right? And I don't, even if it wasn't, I don't want my garage full of dust. If I had a big enough shop, I'd probably build like a paint prep / painting room in there. I'd probably just do the paint and prep all in one. I know some people frown on that, but a lot of big name people have done it that way for years. So I just wanted to show you guys like how much of a difference there is in color here, just from the original paint to basically where I sanded it down a little bit. Now if you had buffed it, this is the kind of the color it would end up being. Of course, I've taken it down farther here. Some of this was already thin, like this was all peeling up here already, so whatever. But if you were just kind of going for like that, buff it out with 2000, 1500 or whatever, that's kind of like what it would have looked like, which wasn't terrible. But we're going to take it a step further here. All right, so you can kind of see here, this thing's got a big dent in it. I don't know if it blew a tire at one time and it slapped and maybe curved that in. That's going to be kind of a hard thing to deal with here. So right now it's still got the brace on it. It's weird because the brace isn't bent. So I'm going to take the brace off, and then I'm going to try to just kind of kick it in with my foot a little bit. I'm hoping I can put the brace back on it. And then I might just have to put a little filler in there to kind of fill in that gap. Like I said, this truck's not going to be anywhere near straight as an arrow anyways, but it's it's pretty decent actually, considering. Like I said, it's weird that it has rust in the places it has rust for a California truck, but I don't know where it spent most of its life. When I picked it up, it was over in the desert, so wouldn't think it would really, but sometimes dirt gets into places or whatever, and if it sits there long enough and it doesn't get washed often enough, then sometimes that's just enough to make it so that it's a problem. So I'm going to try to almost need something back there to kind of stop it from, because the whole thing is going to want to bend in. I'm going to try to just give that a little kink back in. I'm going to get the body hammer and just try to hit this curve from behind, and just I think I'm going to see if I have something to put in front of it to kind of work it here. It would be nice if I could get some of that out of there. I'd rather not have to body fill that, but see what I can do. I'm not a person that's like amazing at body. I can do a pretty decent job if I take a lot of time at it, but to be totally honest, people on YouTube don't want to see 2,000-hour bodywork project. That's just what it is. So where people want to see something you can get running and driving and make it look sensible in a sensible amount of time. So that's what we're doing here. All right, I got the bend out of it pretty good here, but there's just some stuff that I can't get, so I'm gonna have to put a little bit of filler here. I don't have my proper body tools here. I usually have like basically something to hit against with the hammer, so you put it in the backside, but I'm just not the best at that kind of stuff, so whatever. It's a cheap truck, so we'll do what we got to use here and use what we have to make it work. So, but I mean, it's the body, like I said, you look from here and the body is fairly straight, and I got most of the stuff out of it. The two biggest problems here is there's a giant dent in the front fender, which it kinked in and it rolled the metal up, which is going to be a problem. I'm not sure I'm going to deal with that yet. And both the bottom of the front fenders have rust holes in them, so I don't really want to change the fenders, so I'm not going to. It's, like, to be totally honest, it's not that bad to do on these trucks, but again, something that turns into something that you can fix in a couple hours ends up turning into something that, you know, you're gonna have to tear apart a bunch of the truck to do and stuff. And the biggest problem is now with all the Chinese parts, like you can see this truck, the lines on this truck are like straight as an arrow. The doors close perfect, the fenders line up perfect and everything. So I don't want to start messing around with that, because it's just like you buy all these like off-brand parts from China or whatever, and they never fit properly. So we're not going to go down that road. I'm just going to fill them in, and we're going to go from there. All right, so this kind of rocker corner here, which is common to go out on these things, here's kind of what the problem is. You can see this thing's been, I mean, it's been in the desert, and you can see that stuff is just soaked. So it's full of dirt. I'm gonna have to kind of open this up a little bit, and then basically I'm gonna clean it out, and it's just gonna get some Bondo over top of it. Doesn't take much. You'll just be able to fill over top of it. You could put something over it if you want to just hold it, so you don't have to use as much Bondo or whatever, but I am going to clean this all out, because if you don't get this cleaned out, it's going to start or continue to rust, I guess is what I should say. Look at the amount of dirt that's coming out of there. So that just kind of gives you an idea. Like, you could put a cap corner in this thing if you wanted to. Not a big deal. If you want to do it. We've done it. We've done it quite a few times, actually. It's not the wrong thing to do, but this is a pretty small hole. So in this particular case, again, being on a budget, cap corner probably cost you, I don't know, you could probably get one from Amazon for $50-$60 or something. But then you gotta be able to weld, and you're still gonna have to Bondo to kind of feather it back in, all that kind of stuff. So my opinion, this is gonna be the cheap, easy way to do this. And holy cow, there's a lot of dirt there. And just look how wet that screwdriver is. So it's just pure mud in there. So if you tried to just obviously put something over top of that, or if you didn't get that cleaned out, like the reason I can tell this obviously hasn't been washed very much is because if you took it to a car wash, you would wash that stuff out of there, even if it was, you know, just so it wasn't holding dirt, and this wouldn't have continued on like this. So that's been happening for a long time. It started as a small hole and never got washed out or taken care of body-wise or whatever. So that's why the hole is a lot bigger now. So, and I'm actually surprised it's not worse at the bottom here, because of course at the bottom is where it's all gonna pool up the moisture. It is kind of bad a little bit on the inside here. Again, I'm not taking the bed off, so I'm not gonna mess around with this too much here, but and I'm not gonna paint behind the bed. I'm only gonna paint basically whatever I'll spray in here. So basically what you see is what you get there. So you can see the pile of dirt that I've already pulled out of here. But if you notice, you guys can see that the screwdriver is coming through there. So that's what I was talking about. And I kind of expected that with that amount that was in there, that would be coming through. So it's not the end of the world. Like I said, just a little bit of Bondo there or whatever, and that'll take care of that. But it's got to be clean first. All right, I got that other, basically that cap corner kind of cleaned out as good as I could with the screwdriver. I'm going to blow it out. There's actually so it's separated at the door here. It's kind of where it's rusted a little bit, but it's kind of separated there. Almost looks like maybe it had a cap corner. I don't think it did, but that's kind of what it seems like. And when I push the screwdriver down, it actually goes out the bottom too, so it's open there. So I can kind of either blow it out or rinse it out or with water or something like that there. So that's good. The next problem we're dealing with here is this corner of this fender here, and probably here we go again, much of the same problem here. So these fenders typically, like I'm assuming these are the factory fenders yet, but man, it's just full back in there. I'm gonna have to get a longer screwdriver to clean a whole bunch of this out, but again, can't fill that in with Bondo until we take care of that, make sure that's all cleaned out good. But I'm going to put some cardboard behind this as well, I think. This is going to be a little trickier to do here. What I have done in the past as well, in other situations, is I've just taped over it and then Bondoed over it and sanded down the Bondo right to where the tape was pretty much. That has actually worked surprisingly. I've had cars that I've done that to like 20 years ago that are still, you can't even tell. So again, there's a right and a wrong way to do things, and then there's the schmedium way. We're doing things the schmedium way here. So this is just like a super budget way to do things. And honestly, you can buy fenders for these trucks for not that expensive. But like I said, look at these gaps. I mean, it's like perfect gaps and everything. You're never going to get that once you put in like aftermarket fenders. And that was the problem with my other truck when we did it. It was like Chinese fenders and nothing fit good, and the doors wouldn't line up anymore. It was just kind of annoying. That's actually a big part of the reason I got rid of that truck. So you guys can see here, that's how much came out of the front fender, and it's probably not perfect, but better than having to spend hours getting it all washed out here. So I think that'll be good enough there. Gonna rinse out this other hole here now. Let's see what that looks like once we start getting a little water coming out of it here. I'm not sure exactly where the water's going to come out when I rinse it, but let's take a look here. See if we can check this one out. It's pretty dirty. Oh, there we go. There was a hole there. I just wasn't sure where it was. Coming straight out the back too, so obviously it's kind of dirty everywhere, but that one wasn't nearly as bad. I got a bunch of the dirt out of it already. The only thing about these small sprayers is that the pressure doesn't last very long when you're going full tilt like that. There's probably going to be people watching this that are saying, why are you doing it that way instead of just putting a cap corner? You know how to do it. You could just do it that way. It's not that expensive. Yeah, you're right, it's not, but it's way cheaper to do it this way. It's way faster to do it this way. And I think what happens with a lot of people, and everybody knows this from having different different projects over the years, is it's like if you try to do everything perfect, you're never going to get it finished. And it's kind of like how Freiberger says, don't get it right, just get it running. Well, that's part of doing this bodywork stuff too. Like, you can paint something and have it not be perfect, but still drivable, and it looks way better than it did, and it's not 100% perfect. If down the road you want to replace this cap corner, you still can. You're going to have the paint match. It would be easy to just blend it in or whatever. Like, it's not that big of a deal, really. So you could do that down the road. And eventually this is probably going to rust away anyways. It might last another 10 or 15 years before that happens, though. So why replace the whole thing? So again, it's at a level of where do you want to go with it, and how much money and time do you want to put into it. If you're planning on spending 2 years building it, well, most people just get fed up and then they just give up on it. And that's why you see half torn apart project cars everywhere. So that's why I'm doing it this way. I wanted to show you guys that you can just do this. Like, basically, I mean, if you have a week to kind of tinker around, that's basically, you can put together what I'm going to do with this truck here. All right, guys. So even though I'm doing a halfway job of this, isn't going to be a perfect paint job, I still want to take things apart and make sure I don't get paint all over things like the chrome. And I want it to be covered as full as possible. So I'll take the headlight trim off here. I'm going to take the marker lights off. I will take the bumper off. I'm hoping that's not too much of a fight there. I'm going to need new brackets for that. It's been a while since I took one of these apart. I think I might actually have to take... Oh, there we go. I thought maybe I had to take the main grill off, but I guess I don't. So I'll tape the grill and that kind of stuff. But I do want to, like I said, you can tape it, and I have done that in the past, but it's a lot more work, and then it's hard to stop over spray on things like lights and things like that. It's a lot of taping, whereas you could just spray right by it otherwise. So I'm going to use a magnetic tray to keep everything together so I don't lose my screws and that kind of stuff, because I don't want to have to go looking for screws afterwards. So that's kind of the plan here. So, oh, what am I missing here? One more screw at the bottom, apparently. Get that one out of here and take out the marker lights, and should be good to go. All right, so I got the side marker light out. I sanded the bulk of this fender here. Finished this half of the hood. You can see right in the front here, there's lots. And again, that's probably just from not washing it. Like, the bulk of this truck is probably just the rust is from not washing it, which is pretty sad, actually. So then there's the marker lights down here. Took these headlight covers off there. You can order all this stuff from Amazon too. They make like nice new chrome ones if you want your truck to look mint. Depending on how this goes, the side marker lights here that are in the sides here, the turn signal lights or side marker lights there, those ones, I might possibly replace those. I probably won't replace the headlight buckets, because those I think are about $100, something like that, last time I ordered them, maybe more now. But I'm happy with those. I could polish them up a little bit if I'm worried about it, but again, not going to be a perfect truck. It's going to look a lot better. I mean, all in all, selling to this thing for pretty cheap. And like I said, I mean, I could go down a road of doing little things like this, and I don't mind, actually. Like, those are probably, the side lights and stuff are pretty cheap, things like that. I'll show you kind of what the ones that came off were like or whatever. I'm not sure about the front marker. So these are the side ones. You can see, like I said, they're kind of cracked, and once the paint's on, looking good. Not sure if I can live with the ugly side markers, but these are the front ones, and they're pretty cracked too. I don't remember ever ordering those, so I don't know if you can get those from Amazon. Both sides they're pretty cracked, so I can live with putting them back on, but I might order those. So again, you don't have to. If you're doing this like I'm doing this, and you're just trying to be on a super budget, you could have got away from things like putting the front pads on. You could have got away from things like buying the wheels or whatever. It needed tires anyway, so really for the amount I paid $400 for those wheels and tires, and the tires are like new, so you were going to pay that for new tires anyway. So to me, that's a bargain. And you see lots of 15-inch wheels that are for these trucks for around that $400 mark with decent tires on them, so I think that's probably the way to go. And I always like to try a different style of wheel out or whatever. I like the old school wheels, things like that, so that's why I went that way. But it's coming along anyways here, so I think I'm getting tuckered out for the day here. It's super hot and it wears you down here pretty quick. But I think tomorrow, once this all dries out, I'm gonna turn it around and then I'll start body working the other side there. All right, guys. Well, hate to admit this, but it's been probably 3 weeks since I touched this truck. We actually tried to drive it on July 1st there, and the carb started leaking really bad. I'll drop that clip in here, but yeah. So I just went through and quickly give it a quick spray with the. I have the cleaner basically, just the spray on cleaner. I'm wiping it down with some paper towels. So there's a lot of things I'm not going to love about how I'm doing it, but remember, if you're like 16, 17, 18 years old, or just something you want to get together on a budget relatively quickly, this is going to be, the way a lot of guys would do it, right? So there's tons of different options. You could buy used parts. You could replace the bed. You can replace the bed sides, the fenders, all that stuff. But then it turns into a project where it's going to be like a big ordeal. Whereas what I'm doing here, it's not going to be 100% perfect, but it's going to look pretty decent, 1,000 times better than it was. It's not going to end up in the scrapyard like it probably was going to, or get parted out or whatever. So what I'm going to do here is start working on the Bondo part of this. I'm going to do this side. I had this little mini air conditioner that I bought here. It's been running for like probably 36 hours. It's only 5,000 BTUs, and it's basically 85 degrees in here, so it's doing nothing. So after I'm done this, I'm going to shut it off probably. And I think I'm going to end up having to buy like probably a 12, 13,000 BTU just to take the edge off in here a little bit better. But it'll do for now. So that's what I'm working on. All right, guys, I guess I'm learning some things as I go on in time here. I've made so many mistakes over time. So some of the things that I had issues with over the years is, like, I always talk to people and they said when you're, say, adding, normally when I used to do Bondo, like real Bondo, this one's just a different brand, but when I would do real Bondo, they would say to add it to, basically you could see it pink. This one's a blue hardener. And I think I always used too much because it was like hardening way too fast, and I made it work. But then what happens is you're trying to fill with it, it's basically like starting to harden, and then as you're starting to spread it, it's like leaving strips in it. Because if you start getting any little piece of anything on this spreader, for example, you're gonna see that when you're spreading it. And another thing I will say from experience, if you're filling big holes and things like that, if you can get something behind there, that's the best case scenario. Other people use fiberglass and stuff. I've never tried it, so I see people use it obviously with success. So whatever, for this type of stuff, it would probably be fine too. What I would say with the Bondo here is that just you'd be better to put 2 coats on it, because if you have to sand it out, it's a lot of work to sand it back out. So I went lighter on the mix here, and it didn't start setting up on me. I only had a bit to do here, so, but usually like when you put it too much, you'll know, because in 10 minutes it'll be rock hard. So I also used to use like containers, which I was going to do. I don't know why I've never thought of this, is just putting it on cardboard. And actually I was watching one of Cletus McFarland's videos the other day, and they were just doing a kind of a cheapo home paint job, and I was like, man, why have I not just put it on cardboard all these years? So I tried that, and yeah, lo and behold, works 10 times better. I don't remember ever doing that before. I always put it in containers, and then once it started to harden, I'd beat it all of the containers and then use a container again. I don't know why I did that. That seemed pretty stupid looking back at it. So there's some lessons I've learned over the years. So big holes too, like there's one here I can't get behind to put something behind it. These ones that were bigger over here, the one on the fender and the one on the back, basically this back quarter panel here, bedside, I put cardboard behind it, taped it in there, and then I'm going against that. So if it's a big hole, it's going to want to drip out. So you have to think about that. So you might be able to just go lighter, put 1 coat, come back, or just kind of force it in there. I have in the past, I've taken like fiberglass tape, like drywall tape, and I've taped it to the backside, and it basically gives it something to kind of stick to, so it doesn't push back out. That actually works pretty good too, but I didn't think about that here.
teaser. All that seems so for you is behind doors I can't open. No, there's a difference between having and hoping. No, there's a difference between having and hoping.
What I'm trying to do here is make sure that there's no like ripples in this filler, because if there is, when you sand that down, you're gonna see it. And like a lot of people are gonna say this is crazy to use this much. Well, by the time you sand it out, there ain't much left. This looks like a lot right now, but I can guarantee you'll see what I mean afterwards. There's basically almost nothing left. You sand the bulk of it out. So again, I haven't done this in forever, so give me a little bit of a break here. We'll figure something out here. Anyways, I'm gonna see if I can continue on here. The hardest thing about this is trying to shape it when you're in like you're trying to make a curve, or you're trying to, if it's flat, it's easy, but if you're trying to actually go into some sort of curve or something along the lines of that, you want to actually make it look like it did from the factory, that's the toughest parts, honestly. And this is where, if you want it to look perfect, instead of spending a day at this, you'd be spending, weeks. But we'll kind of doing it in between medium kind of a job here. All right, I'll get back to this. All right. When I was working on it in the garage, it's so dark I couldn't even see this. I knew it had it, but I totally forgot. So I still have a bunch of little Bondo work to do. But I'm going to try to drill a hole in this. I've got this thing's pretty worn out. This tool I've used so many times is auto body slide hammer there. But I'm going to drill a hole and try to get the end of it in there, bang it up, and then try to pound that back in so it's at least somewhat flush. I'm not changing this fender, so it'll be what it'll be. So let's see what we can do here. Okay, so I got my hole drilled, and basically, which this one's, like I said, it's really worn out. It's supposed to stay on there like this, but you can see this has been tack welded on there, and there's nothing left of these, because this just threads into there and there's no metal in there. It's just like stiff rubber or whatever, so that ends up coming out all the time. So we'll see how this works. I always forget about that. So let's see if I can get that in there. First of all, you can take it off the hammer too if you need to. Try to see if that hole's big enough. If it's not, I might have to make it a touch bigger. I don't want it too big, or it'll just want to tear it when I hit it with the slide hammer. So there we go. Should be just like that. That'll be hard to get back on because all the weight's on here, of course. Nope. There's the problem with these. All right, it was sort of hard to show you guys that, but you can see already this part is almost flush. It's going to need a little bit of little bit of fixing there, but that's way more flush so you can actually do something with it. And this is what's going to be the problem here. That's the problem, is because it's this curve right here. To try to make that look nice again, it's going to be a little bit of a hassle here. So I don't know. I'm going to just try to beat it in and see what happens. So when I originally started trying to hit this in there, the problem was there's no place for that metal to push back to because it had dented down. So now that I've actually hammered that, it should technically go back up. What you don't want to do is hit this on the curve, because then you have to shape that curve back. So that's kind of still there. So as long as I stay away from that, I think we'll be okay. All right, I had to rush the truck back in because it started raining and there's like bare spots of metal. I don't want to start flash rusting. So, but I backed it back out because it's just a little mini shower came through. It's supposed to rain all day, so we'll see how it goes here. But a lot of guys won't want to watch body type work, especially if it's budget type stuff. But I'm sure there's people that do.
But this was bigger than my plan. See the way he looks at you, the way you wanted me to.
All right, still got more to do here, but I just walked around and I knocked down some of the Bondo that I put into like these areas, and I'll kind of show you here so you can kind of see what happens. I'll just give you an idea here too. So this is a California truck, and so people always think California trucks are going to be super easy to work on. This was not the case on this one. I'm also not a cop-out either, so I'm not gonna just take the easy way out because of that. So you can see as I'm spreading the Bondo, if I'm doing like rough areas, see how that's scratched? You're gonna see that in the Bondo. And then that's extra sanding, and you'd think it wouldn't be that big of a deal, but you see all these marks? Like I've already knocked that down a whole bunch, but in big patches, like as you're spreading that, you're gonna see that. So really, if you had steel Bondo spreaders, whatever, I would say that would be a better solution. Still got some huge dents in the side here. You can see where he backed into things. So I do have a bumper for it. I bought that, and the front and rear actually. So hopefully it comes off sensibly. That side's got a good sized dent in it too. But here again, so I sanded this down. It's kind of tricky because it's right in the curve here, but you could see just a little bit of residual of where those were spread there with that. And you can't really tell as you're doing it, and you don't realize it until it's pretty much starting to dry. So yeah, this wasn't as good as I would like it to be, just because I was kind of doing it in a tight space there, and I sort of just slathered it in there. But again, just kind of working with what I got. So I knocked it down. I'm gonna have to do some more. There's a hole in the roof too. I would like to get these straightened out to some extent. Maybe if I get the bumper off, I can knock those out a little bit better from the back. But need to sand a bunch of this down. Like if you left this, for example, you'll see all of that. So you got to at least like just hit it with some probably 220 grit or something like that. But this little sander that I got from Amazon there, this thing's holding up pretty good, and it's super cheap. So the one thing is, like, once you get these tools, they last a long time, you know, other than batteries on stuff like that. I mean, pretty cheap investment. I forget exactly how much I said that one was, but something like $20, $30, something like that. And the battery actually lasts really good. So I banged that back. So that looks pretty decent. A little bit of Bondo in there. And then this has to be Bondoed on the hood there. So that'll be fairly straightforward there. But just again, taking some time here. So I might try to rip this front bumper off and see how that goes. Then I'll be able to kind of deal with that. And then once I get it into the garage a little bit there onto the concrete, I might try to take the back one off. All right, you guys can usually tell I don't want to do something when it's one of the last things I end up doing. So this toolbox obviously has to go off of here because number one, it's going to be in the way for painting, and number two, it's freaking ugly. Really needs to go to the dump or something, but yeah. Somebody maybe watching will want it, but I doubt anybody lives that close to me. So course, it won't stay up. It's actually a half decently built toolbox too, so I don't know. It looks like it's got, I'm assuming that's 4 1/2-inch, hopefully. It's gonna be fun to reach. Yeah, it's got 4 1/2-inch bolts, so I gotta go get something to prop this up, and then I'll get those bolts off and get this thing out of there. All right, it started raining outside here, so I just pulled everything back in so stuff didn't get soaked. I took the bolts out of this thing. Oh, there we go. So now I just need to find a place to put it, but I wanted to sand some more on the body here and put a little more filler, but I want to do the last one as good as I can so it actually turns out smooth. So I think I'm going to leave it alone for today because I don't want to be working on it inside this cramped shop where it's like hard to like actually spread the Bondo good. So one thing I was talking about, when those Bondo spreaders have scratches in them like that, what you can do is just kind of rough sand it, get to where you need to, because usually you're not where you need to, especially if you're doing like giant holes like I am, which most normal people aren't. But if you are, then the solution for that would be just to, the very last pass, use a brand new one, because the reason it's doing that is it's catching on like metal or scratching on that kind of stuff, any kind of jagged edges and things like that. So I'm gonna get this toolbox off here, and that's probably gonna wrap it up for me today here. So you can tell I'm sweating still. It's like freaking still mid 80s, which is for me, I guess, apparently pretty hot. As it's 8 in the morning here, and I'm laying on this creeper that hurts my back. I'm about to get showered with rust and everything else under the sun probably. I'm sitting here contemplating maybe I should have been a lawyer or a doctor or something along the lines of that instead of what I'm doing here. So I'm not really looking forward to this. Maybe I can actually get my face out of there. Let's see. I should put lube on it, would be the smart thing to do. All right, we'll come back to that. Let's see if this thing will come off now. Ooh, I was hanging on by a thread there apparently. Good thing that didn't fall on me. Ooh, those are heavy. It's always good to keep these brackets if you ever need one in the future or something. The perfect example is that front bumper is all bent up, so I'll probably end up keeping the brackets off this bumper. The bumper itself is no good, but I'll throw the brackets on something else. The bumper would be good, I guess, if you want to throw it on like a trail runner or something like that. All right, so I don't know if I can get in here with a hammer, but I'm just gonna try to, if possible, I've got a body hammer here. If I can just straighten these out a little bit at least, because it's bad. I might have to take like a punch or something and punch it outwards. So. In there just at that angle, you can get a little bit of it, but not the whole thing. Not too bad. I'll keep working at this. All right, the driver's side was pretty dinged in. I think this guy liked the hooch, but because every single panel and everything on this truck was dinged. Same with the bumpers, but that one came pretty good. This one is a little bit higher than I can reach with the hammer, so you can see it's still pretty dinged up there. So I'm gonna take a punch and try to pound that out a little better. So the bed of this thing is filthy, so I'm gonna rinse it out before I start getting it all ready for paint and stuff. I don't want to get the body wet because I still have exposed metal there, but figured at least I could do this and then try to get the bed clean. I haven't decided what I'm gonna do with the bed yet. I might paint it actually. I don't know. I don't know. It's it would take a little bit of prep, so I'm on the fence about it, but I gotta rinse it out anyways. All right, so wherever stuff was kind of sitting on it here, like the toolbox, and I don't know exactly what happened here, but it's kind of rough surface from rust. So there's nothing you're gonna really do to fix that unless you're gonna do light skims with Bondo or something like that. But I'm not gonna do that. I am gonna sand it down a little bit just to see if I could smooth it up a little bit on both sides. And then box is about as clean as it's gonna get just by rinsing it out there. And so I'm standing outside here, and I don't know if you guys can see this in the video, but this is all spider cracked. Like, it almost looks like maybe this truck was painted at one point or something with like house paint or something weird like that, because it's like, it doesn't look like it's been painted, but something's weird with the paint, like almost like something got underneath it during the painting process if you were to like have contamination or something like that, because it's like this entire area is all spider cracked out here. So I don't really know what to do with that. I've never run into that before. I mean, except for taking it down to bare metal. I'm not sure, so I'm gonna see when I start sanding it if it smooths over or not. I think I figured out why it's cracking like that. So if you look at this side, you see how kind of in there, it's got like a pretty aggressive lip on the edge there. Now if you look at this side, it's obviously been to the body shop and filled, because there's no, if you look, I don't know if you can see this or not, but if you look at it, it's almost flush. So that means it's full of Bondo. So I'm just gonna lightly scruff that out, because otherwise I'm gonna have to deal with filling it back in with Bondo. But you can see what I mean. There's no lip here at all. There's like, it's pretty much flush. I never noticed that before, but they did a pretty good job of hiding that. Any of this kind of stuff too, if you see these little nicks like that, if you don't at least feather smooth them kind of like this, like kind of rough it out and smooth down the edges, like so that it's not just a huge bump, you're gonna see that as well. So I ended up taking a screwdriver and I kind of scraped this all out, hit it with the hammer, got all the loose stuff out, and that's as good as it's gonna get. So it'll be what it is. Like I said, it's not going to be a show truck, but it should look a lot better anyways. So just finding hidden things here or whatever. So just going to keep adding to the Bondo, I guess. All right, more hoopty fun here. So how I found this was I was sanding this bend here, and usually you just start sanding it and you can see the metal right away. And I started to see Bondo and I was like, oh, better stop. So something to look for. So now just something to think about there is when I'm sanding all this, I can't just go crazy because there's Bondo underneath that. So when I want to take these nicks out, that's going to make it really difficult. So it's this is like one of those things. Like, I know everybody's going to say, well, you could have just replaced the metal, and yeah, you could have, but like, look how long this has probably been on here. I bet you know, that might be 20 years ago, 30 years ago that happened already, who knows for sure. But and I could tell because when I went over to these ones here, there's like a bunch of little nicks I was working on there. It's got actual colored paint over top of it, so that's how you can tell it's obviously been painted, at least this part of the truck anyway. So man, there's been so much stuff just dragged down the truck here, and it's like hard to get all of those scratches out without going down to the Bondo. So you have to be extra careful here, so don't want to have a huge divot that I have to fill back in. More evidence of what I'm talking about here. See that? There's a paint run in it. See, like if a person really looked hardcore close at what you were looking at there, you would have seen all this. And I could tell actually, because the truck was a little bit different color. I think I even mentioned that in the first ad there when I looked at it. So I figured it had been hit at some point or whatever there, but obviously, like I said, I just didn't, I saw this, but I didn't really put the two and two together at first, and because I wasn't really like deep diving into it, like not planning to buy a nice truck is, I guess, kind of the way to look at it. So I wasn't too worried about it, and it still doesn't concern me, but there's your kind of telltale sign for sure there. So it is what it is. All right, I'll be honest, I was kind of procrastinating taking the bumpers off because I thought those are sometimes a fight when they're bent. I didn't think the back one would be too bad, but the front one's like really tweaked. This is where it got hit pretty good there. And that Bondo I was just talking about in the back too there, I noticed there's that little, you'll see that on a lot of these square bodies where the bottom of the bottom of that bedside there gets like a little bit of a dip up, and it almost looks like it's supposed to be there just about, but you know it's not supposed to, obviously. So I'm imagining whenever that side got hit, that's when that happened or whatever. But anyway, so I'm gonna see if I can get these front bolts out. I took one out already. Wasn't too bad, but I went for the easy one first here. I'll do the side. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna do the middles and save the sides for last, I guess. The bottom one's probably gonna be the ones that's gonna fight me, I'd imagine. Because that's where it's tweaked there, so it's kind of a pain to work underneath it, but I'll take these ones out first and see where we get from here. Well, as anticipated, at least one stubborn bolt here so far, so gonna take the grinder, I guess, and cut that out. It's weird, the other one came out perfectly fine, so see why I was procrastinating. All right, I guess we'll get this cut off here, and then 2 more bolts. I can get at those, so I think they'll come off okay. I should probably spray them ahead of time here too. All right, of course I have this tiny little garage, and so it took me 20 minutes to get the grinder out from underneath the counter where all the other junk is. So I just left the ratchet on it so that I can get some bite behind it. I don't even have a cutting disc, so we'll see how this goes. I have just a grinding disc. That's all I got, so at least I think it's all I got. Yeah, it would appear that is all I have. I do have one cutting disc, so I'll try with the grinding one first here and see how it goes. All right, I finally broke down and put the death wheel on there. Tried to hold it with vice grips and get it off, and I just can't get that last little bit off there. So gonna try with the actual cutting disc on it there. These things terrify me. There's no freaking guard on this one either. I probably would put it back on if I knew where it was, because I've cut my finger open and I've like gotten nerve damage in there now from like probably 12 years ago. And I've seen them come off and like go into people's legs and arms and stuff like that. So I really don't like using it unless I absolutely have to. And I know they're kind of useless without with the guard on them, but it is a lot safer with the guard, that's for sure. It would stop it from like coming at your arm or face or something like that, but it's obviously not going to happen in this situation. So holy frick, man, finally. That was like an hour and a half of cutting and grinding and wrenching, and wow. Holy cow, I got burnt good. My legs are kind of singed here. All right. 2 more bolts here. Holy frick, man. No wonder I was procrastinating this, because I kind of knew that's how it was going to be. Whoever came up with the idea of carriage bolts is stupid. Could have hurt. Like the carriage bolt came like right to the very end. It was at the last few threads, and I don't know why it wouldn't come, but it was like crazy tight the whole way though. Hooray! Okay, Now you can kind of see how bent this is. So you see how far out that bracket is, and then you see how far this one's in. I think they're both bent, I don't know, but it's the other side that had that little bit of a frame crack there, so you can definitely see they're tweaked. So at least it didn't bend the frame, but it is a little bit damaged, but we can fix that too. So okay, well, ow. Oh, that hurt the old back there. This little stool I've got is like bent. Apparently, I hit something rolling backwards here. All right, anyways, on with life here. All right, bumpers off. Just gonna get outside in the shade here and try to do a little more sanding now that the batteries are charged. I had a little mix up with the sander there. The charger for my daughter's scooter is the exact same, and it's like 20 or it's like 40 volts, and this is 21, and so burnt out a battery, I guess. So I ordered a new one, and now only one of those batteries is working for some reason. I'm not sure why. So I might have to exchange that one again yet. All right, getting down to the nitty gritty here. Keep finding more and more stuff here. So I'm sanding the roof right now, and the roof is like got a whole bunch of exposed, like it was scratched and nicked all over the place here and stuff. And of course it started to rust, so just kind of lightly sanding it so we can paint it. It also had a hole in the roof, so I just threw a little Bondo in there last time, but it's gonna have a little bump in it now, but it is what it is. So yeah, I mean, yeah, we're getting pretty close. It's got one more round of Bondo. I'm hoping that's the last round, and then that should be pretty much it. Sand that down and then get ready for paint. You guys can kind of see what I'm talking about here. Basically trying to make it so that there's no bumps in it. All right, guys, one of the last things I'm doing here is taking the taillights out. It's looks like a 15 Torx, which I think they actually have always had these, but they're usually like rusted right out by the time we get to them. So these are actually intact, but I want to basically prime it. And so I got the bulk of it pretty much sanded, and like I said, I got to do a little more Bondo, but you can actually see like where that kind of stuff's been. I don't know if they just took some Bondo and tried to shove it in there or whatever, but there's a few spots like that. Obviously at one time it got in an accident. I'm assuming the guy that owned it just paid someone to get it fixed, because it's not like a body shop wouldn't have done that. First of all, like a real body shop wouldn't have put 10 pounds of Bondo in a, you know, in a side like that. So, which is whatever, it doesn't matter. Again, for this kind of quality of a truck, it's been there that long, and probably most people probably didn't even notice. All right, get that off, and then it has Phillips screws behind it. Actually, those are the ones that are usually bad. So anyways, I'm gonna get these tail lights off of it there, and then I guess come up with a game plan from there. I don't know if I want to clean it tonight, because really I want to prime it, but if I clean it, it's like it would almost be nice to just paint something in the same day. So I'm not sure if I can prime it all today yet. It's getting late already here, 3 o'clock, to get something big like that done. All right, so I think one of my mistakes was I was mixing too much Bondo last time, so I'm just gonna mix up enough to do like 1 or 2 little spots and then go on to the next spot. I've got one Bondo spreader that's already kind of beat up from the rough spots, so I might use that in a couple of the rough spots there, and then use a brand new smooth one for the other spots. So, but yeah, I'll probably do 3 or 4 different spots of Bondo here, so I'll just do it in a few different sections that I'm not rushing to like not have it dry too fast. All right, so I walked around and gave this thing basically what I feel like is going to be the last little bit of Bondo here. It sucks with holes. There's better ways to do it. Like you could fill it with something first. You could get something behind there and weld a circle. You know, if you put something like copper that doesn't weld, then you can just make circles basically into the metal with the welder, and then grind that smooth. Again, that's like more if you're going high-end, fancier type stuff, but it's cleaning up here anyway, so it's I think this will be okay. I put a little in the hood here. I think I got that relatively smooth. Again, none of this is going to be perfect. This was starting to kind of dry by the time I got it laid in there, so wasn't super happy with that, but we'll see what it looks like when I sand it out. I might have to put a little bit more of a skiff there. I put it super thick there, so put a little more at the bottom over here, filled this hole right here, and there's another hole at the front there that I'd missed. Some here. I didn't put any in this because I knocked that out pretty good, and then the bumper pretty much hides it, so I did put a little bit in the other side just because I had some left. I'll probably sand the bulk of that out, but it's basically ready for primer once I sand that out, so that's about as good as it's gonna get. Like I said, if you were gonna get crazy about it, the one thing I hated on my old truck is this right here, because we were rushing to put it together and I didn't have time to basically pull these little dents here, and so you could really see that with that color paint. This truck doesn't really seem to have too much of that. I see there's one on the hood up here. Again, person could fill it right here, but it'll never end, right? I mean, it's how far you want to go with it and how much time you want to spend on it and stuff. So I do have to pull the mirrors off yet, and other than that, I think, like I said, just a little bit of sanding and it'll be ready to go here. So we're gonna probably, next time you see this thing, we'll be getting it into some primer. I decided at the last second there I was gonna go through and wash all the door jambs and everything really good, because I feel like when I spray it's gonna get in here, and so right in these grooves and stuff, it was just packed with freaking, just from dust and dirt or whatever in there. So I went through with a sponge and some warm water and I scrubbed that all out there. So at least when it oversprays into there, which I wanted to, because on the other side there's been some of that random paint marking in that, so it'll hopefully cover that. And yeah, basically prime, tape, paint. So that's kind of the plan here. All right, guys, it's been a minute here, but I've been working on this truck some more. Got back from a little trip there and been kind of chewing away at it here when I got back. So I've got the body as good as it's going to get. It's not going to be perfect. That's not what this truck is. If I was trying to make it perfect, I would have done things a lot different and I would spend a lot more time at it. But that's not what the idea of this truck is. But what I want to show you here is what I've been talking about, what makes these paint jobs, in my personal opinion, go from like a kind of a backyard grade paint job to basically looking a lot more professional. And that's this kit. And this is, I don't have any, they're not sponsoring me or anything like that, but I got this when I did my first YouTube series there, which I didn't really do a very good job of because I didn't have good editing and audio and all that stuff. But I did paint my green truck with that. So it's a 3M gun here. And so how this thing works is it's got like it's all basically disposable stuff, and which for a guy like me is perfect because I'm not very good at cleaning out like the canisters and stuff. I've had the spray guns before and I've never had great luck like getting them clean and stuff because I don't really know what I'm doing. So how this one works is there's a plastic canister here and there's a portable cup that goes into it, and then on top of that you drop in, there's this lid, you drop in this lid, and then there's the spray nozzle that goes on top, and so it's actually got a filter built into it too. So this will go like this and sit on top of the gun, and after you're done you just throw these tips out and they're just replaceable. They say you can clean them and you can use them up to I think 5 times. I don't clean them because I only paint vehicles, you know, every once in a while on a blue moon there. But what's cool about it is the only thing that gets dirty on this is this actual piece here, and so you just basically give that a wipe down when you're done and that's it. It's got a full pressure reg or like gauge right on here. You can of course adjust the flow and all that stuff here.
It's been so long since I've used it. It's been 2 years now, I guess, since I've actually used this gun, so kind of forget. I did order some more tips for it, so I have spares. I think what I was using here was a 1.4, so I'm gonna spray single stage Summit Racing paint on this truck, and basically, yeah, I mean, it'll be what it is, but I'm gonna prime it ahead of time here. And I did start priming it yesterday. I didn't get super far with it. I'm just rattle can priming it, honestly, because I do have primer here, but I was kind of scared to spray it in the can because I was just sort of scared that I've had it sitting around in this shop for a while and I'm scared that it might be bad. I've never sprayed primer of a gun like that, so I have enough primer to basically do the truck with just rattle can primer, which isn't, this primer isn't very good. It's from O'Reilly's. I wouldn't recommend it. It's Duplicolor stuff, but it'll do the trick for what I'm doing here anyway. So like I said, I got the body worked to basically a decent state, and I got this stuff. So I've been basically going back and forth on whether or not I should use my inflatable spray booth here. So I think I'm going to use that. So that's kind of the next step here.
All right, so we're gonna open up. I have this inflatable paint booth. I think I paid $400 for it brand new. You guys could do it outside if you want. I have so many trees and vehicles and everything around here. I don't want to overspray onto stuff and get stuff in the paint. So if I didn't have this, I would just paint it outside. But because I do have it, we're gonna open this thing up and see if we can figure out if everything will be fine. I'm sure it's fine. I looked at the bottom. I was worried about mice getting into it because I've had mice in my car in the garage this year. So we'll get this open up and see what it looks like.
Get it back in the bag because I think it's a folding issue more than getting it back in the bag issue, but that's okay. We'll figure this out.
This was a big one. I wanted one that was really tall because for a bunch of different reasons, basically different vehicles and stuff at the time I was thinking. Plus it was pretty cheap.
Oh,
Oh, did I block you in?
well, yeah, he's taking my car because he can't fit lumber in his car.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Got you.
He's like, I got this, I got this. We got this, man. I'm assuming this is the bottom. Where's the door, though? I'm
Where?
assuming this was folded in half. That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
Wait,
Looks like thirds almost.
I just want to make sure that we're going the right way.
Does it matter?
Yeah, because he has to drive into it.
Well, this is the big door, ain't it?
Like the drive-in door?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, let Dad tell us where this looks like it's going to be too big to set up here.
Yeah, remember it took up the whole entire shop?
Mm-hmm.
That shop was like, however wide.
This is too big.
Took off the hole or what?
I guess we're going to have to.
Is this the wrong way?
That's what I'm asking.
Is this
the
supposed to
wrong-
be, hey, is this supposed to be like,
I don't know. Where's the
that's
door?
What, that's what it looks
That's
like.
what we were trying to figure out.
Which is doors? Yeah, the door's right here. Give it the wrong way.
Okay, wait, before you pull it out,
Turn it this way.
we got to turn it.
It should fit if you turn it. I can have to get it.
Oh, let's go with this button. Right? Is it go this way? Oh no. Oh yeah.
This is the door, right?
Yeah, it is.
Is this the big door? This is in the small room, right?
No, this
No,
is the
look.
small room. You can see the paint on the floor here.
Okay.
It's filled.
It should fit.
I think it'll fit if we do it that way.
All right, looks like we have just enough room in this little area where I'm setting up in front of the garage here. I remember it being pretty big. Like I think it was something like 16 by 30 or something like that maybe, or 26, I don't remember, but pretty good size anyway. So just got the two blowers on there. We're gonna get this thing set up and then pull it inside, finish taping it. My wife will help me finish taping it while I'm priming it. And then should be ready for some paint there. is a process. All the neighborhood kids are gonna come over thinking we're making a bouncy castle. Best case scenario, you'd have a bunch of cars prepped and then you could just bring them in back to back for paint or something like that, so you don't have to keep setting this thing up. It's another reason I wanted a big shop too, so I could set this thing up inside of it, because it takes up like half of a shop. Like our 30 by 40, it took up like almost the whole thing. Takes a little while to get it. The one thing I will say about it though is I wish that the fan to evacuate the air was a little bit bigger, because I think that one's not quite big enough. Probably zip that up, maybe. I don't know either. I guess it doesn't. I'm just trying to keep stuff out of it until we're ready to go. All right, realized that there was a couple flaps that get open to drain the air out of it when you're done with it. So as we zip those up.
You're gonna have to help a second because it's tipping over.
Oh, apparently I need to help. It's tipping over that direction.
Okay. Like, I need your actual hands right here.
Okay.
All right, he's gonna get the truck started up here and pulled in. You gotta go a little farther.
All right, figured you didn't want to wash this for hours, basically taping this thing up. So we're trying to get this thing finished taping. I missed a few spots of priming here, and I haven't totally finished the truck. So actually I forgot I had bought some Duplicolor primer sealer, and it seems like just the first few sprays here, it's spraying better already. So probably have enough to do the rest of the truck with that. And then, yeah, I guess then we'll start painting. Well, painting day. We're in the booth here, trying to prime this thing. It is freaking cooking in here. Couldn't have probably could have picked a hotter day, but it's definitely hotter than it has been. So it is like scorching in here. So I'm gonna take a little break, just go get my grips here, but it's coming along anyway. So it's almost ready for the first coat here. Ooh, she's been a cooker here. So I pretty much got the bulk of it primed there. I wasn't super happy with on the roof, and I couldn't get primer onto the hood because I always forget, and this happens to me every single time I paint a vehicle. When you try to prime the hood, you need to do it off. Otherwise, you have to have an actual gun with primer in it. So I do have primer up there, but I'm scared to mess around with it because I've never used that primer before in the gun. So I think I'm just gonna spray over top of it. I did get it all light, but it's like very, very light. So not real super happy with those spots, but the good part is I could always touch it up later if I had to, but I'm not so worried about the roof, but I'm hoping that the hood looks okay. So the paint that I'm using here, and if you guys haven't figured it out yet, I'm doing the roof white. So I'm using Summit Racing. This particular white is bright white. This is the same stuff I painted my green truck roof with. Looked really good. So you have to use activator with it here. Depending on your temperatures and stuff, there's different stuff. This is like mid-temperature Summit. This is a Summit UP 101Q. So you just add a little bit of that. I think they say 25%. If I remember right, I'll have to read it again. But here, let me see here. Yeah, it doesn't really say. So there are 3 different ones: below 70 Fahrenheit, mid-temperature 70 to 80, and high temperatures above 80. So kind of gives you an idea there. So yeah, I'm just gonna mix a little bit of that in, put it in the cup, and then get spraying here. I don't think I'm gonna be able to record while I'm in the booth there, but you guys will see the end result, I guess. got lots of paint over my nose, so that's probably not the best. I had the mask on, but must not have been sealing good. Anyways, we had like a little scare there. I just started spraying the light. I had one coat on the roof, and I guess all these are on the same breaker, and it tripped the breaker. And thankfully, the TV was on, and my wife noticed the TV went off because the kids were playing. So she came out to check, and I was like holding up the thing and trying to text her at the same time. And so she went and flipped the breaker back on. So we just ran a different cord there for the compressor, at least. Anyways, it keeps up, but it's definitely not like, it's really not big enough, to be honest. Like you can't continuously spray with it, but it's good enough for this kind of stuff. So anyways, it's in the background there. So got 2 coats of white. I got enough left for 1 coat probably of white. Might as well use the rest of it there, and then time to switch and show you guys the primary color here. So here's my next dilemma, and one that I always seem to forget about as well, is when I'm doing like a white roof like this. If you want to paint the other color the same day, you have to tape it, and so then you run into the problem of like, is it dry enough yet? I know the last time I did it, you could see a little bit of the tape mark there. You could go back and touch that up later if you wanted to. You could wait overnight, or your best case scenario is to leave it in the sun or something like that, but I don't want to take it back outside because then it's going to get dirt all over it and everything. So kind of a catch-22 here of what's the right thing to do. So I'm gonna let it dry as long as possible. But if you guys aren't familiar with single stage paint, I've only ever used the Summit single stage, so I can't speak to other brands. I was going to try other brands, but theirs was the cheapest and it works really good. So this is a Mocha Frost Pearl Metallic, so you'll see what it looks like. I have no idea. It was just, I was trying to not have to paint the interior or make it like a weird, like, you don't want to do like a red interior with like blue outside or something. I know this is tan, so you could get away with a lot more probably, but I wanted to kind of be close to that color, so that's what I kind of chose. So we'll see what it looks like when I get it on there. But so if you've never used single stage, it's basically paint and clear coat in one. So you just do one spray of it, so you don't have to go back and do clear coat. You can if you want. There's guys that will do that. I personally don't, because again, these aren't show vehicles I'm building. This is just kind of casual weekend cruisers or whatever, and it still looks really good. So if you guys haven't tried it, it's worth it. And like I said, you could always clear coat it later if you want. It's easy to touch up. If you're ever gonna nick or something, you just go back and do a quick splash on it, and you don't have to paint the whole thing, and it matches good easy. So just kind of a lot of advantages to it in my opinion, and it's cheap, like 100, and I think it's gone up since I first started using it, but I think it's 120 bucks a gallon, something like that. So it's definitely worth a try. So we'll see if it paints as good as the last time, and then I'll let you know. All right, had to make a decision here. If it was a vehicle I was more trying to be pristine with, I probably would have just left it and let it sit for a day at least anyways. But I did a little bit of research online there, and somebody said take the tape and just like kind of rub it along your pants or your shirt or something like that, so that it makes it not so sticky. So that's what I did, and I did a little test spot and it seemed okay. So hopefully, worst case scenario, I could go back and take like a small brush and just touch it up a little bit or whatever. But we're gonna take some paper and just put it over top of the roof here, and everything else needs to be covered for the white, and then should be good to go. So that's the plan. All right, guys. Sorry if it's kind of loud here. Those blowers are going. I don't have my mics on because I keep going in and out of the paint booth, and I don't want them to get wrecked. So I guess I had the medium temperature for both of these. I wasn't sure what kind I got. I couldn't remember, but so let's open this up together and see what we got. Pretty sure I got paint in my ears. First time seeing this color. So one thing I did notice about the green that I did, it had metallic in it like this one, and it was like the metallic settles to the bottom. So it's like every time you go to like pour it or whatever, you kind of need to shake it a little bit to make sure you get metallic in your gun, so it sprays even here. So I don't know what this is going to be like. I'm putting it on top of this cardboard because I'm inevitably going to spill some for sure. So, just like the last time, we get our cup, put the cup inside the measuring thing here. Then basically just add some of the paint, add a little bit of the activator, and that's pretty much it. And mix it up, and away we go here. So we'll see. I'm hoping when I taped up the roof there that it didn't stick to the roof. That wasn't the best decision probably, but if I was doing this all the time, by the way, they make those pouring things for this. Again, I just don't think of this kind of stuff because I don't do this regularly, but you can just snap it onto the top and you can pour it out. Because I'm going to make a mess here. I can see already. That's probably why there's green paint all over this other one. It's easy to pour when it was only coming out of a quart. Oh, I didn't make too much of a mess. A bit of activator there. I mean, I'm not going to exact measure it. I think last time I maybe did, but it's about I forget. Plug, you got someone there. I'm sure it's fine. Let's give you that answer. Seems like I don't know. I'm not sure what it'll look like on this truck. We'll see. It looks a little different than I was anticipating, so we're seeing it together here. I guess we'll see what it looks like when I spray it on the truck. It seems thin compared to the other stuff, but maybe it's just the way that it looks here. So again, you take your top here, you just put it on top. Can you snap it on? Lock it in. I've got this one pretty full this time. Just make sure it's locked in. And then you take your gun. Same story here. Wait, what? I'm missing something here. Doing something wrong here. Oh, yes. The spray tip, guys. I was like, wait a minute. Something's missing from the equation here. So the spray tip goes on top of here. See, again, if you did this all the time, you'd remember all this stuff, but it's super easy to work with anyways. And I like that you don't have to strain the paint or anything because there's a screen built right into it. So this is a 3M PPS setup here. Again, I have no affiliation with them, but you just keep buying the cups and whatever, and you use the measuring one over and over again, and just change your tips out. You can reuse it if you want to spray some stuff out of it to clean it or whatever. That's totally fine too. And you wouldn't think so, but this is how it goes. It's I'm always scared when I flip it over, but I'm gonna put it on first. Just make sure you got it fully in there. And then the collar just locks over top of it here. And I don't have great advice on how to set it up. The instructions that it kind of had originally given when I first tried it weren't really the greatest instructions there. It didn't really seem to work like it was supposed to. So I just went to a specific setting, and that's where it's been at ever since. So that's where I've left it. So, all right, I'm going to go try this out. All right, guys, so I'm wrapped up for the day here. I'm going to leave it inside here to dry. There was a little hiccup at the end. I totally misread that. So I thought I had the activator. So when I went to do the main gallon for the body, I was actually using a reducer, and I didn't realize it until I was halfway in. So I did have some activator left, and I was kind of using a little bit of it with it. What it will do is it just won't harden as fast or whatever, or dry as fast or whatever. So depending on your humidity and all that kind of stuff, that kind of stuff's all going to affect your drying. But I think overall it turned out pretty decent. I might have, thinking back about it, I might have went with a darker brown maybe the next time if I ever do something like this again. But I think the color actually will look pretty good with the white roof there and everything. So we'll see what it's like when we pull it out tomorrow. But it's got some other stuff to add to it so I can show you guys. All right, guys, I decided to leave this thing in the booth all night, let it air out really good in here and get rid of all the
the floating mist in the air and dry good. There was a couple little hiccups along the way, so the only reason I didn't paint the whole bed, which I think it actually, looking at this little part here, that it would have looked half decent, but I didn't know how to get into the bed without the hose touching the paint, because even when I was spraying primer and I went up to do the roof, the hose touched the edge a little bit there, and the primer had already dried for quite a while, but it kind of scuffed it, and I was just worried about it getting into the paint. So, but here's the first look at this thing anyways, so probably kind of hard to see in here. There's definitely a few little flaws or whatever, but this is very similar to like 80s GM color in my opinion. It's there's actually some Ford colors that were similar to this too. If you remember, kind of like the early 90s, mid 90s, they had this color. They actually even had them on some Ford Focuses and stuff like that. But yeah, there was a spot here you could see. It was actually, what was happening was it dripped water into the paint. I went to drain the compressor before I started, and just didn't get all the water out of it. I guess I thought it was empty, but it actually was not empty. So, but yeah, like I said, you can see a few little flaws in it still or whatever. It's not perfect by any means, but I'm gonna take this tape off and see what it looks like.
It was at this moment he knew he messed up.
You've made me a better man. I can't love you the way.
All right, guys, if you guys have been sort of watching, you probably saw these in the back of the truck while this truck was getting worked on. Again, remember, everything's not perfect. The truck's not going to be perfect. It's going to be a little bit wavy, and you're going to see a little bit of the dings and dents. It's not perfect because it was so bad to begin with. Unless you're going to spend either more money or way more time, it wouldn't have been perfect. So following that theme, this thing's got these are ARE wheels, probably from, I would say, early 90s probably or whatever. I actually think they're going to really complement this color. I forget, there's two different sizes. I think it's, 245 60 15s and 235 60 15s. So I got some basically some blue magic metal polish. I saw this on the Big Chief 405 channel a long time ago. Works really good. So I'm just going to take the power drill, buff these up a little bit, and then we're going to get these things mounted. So I paid $200 for these things. The only downfall to them is, again, they don't have the proper screws or whatever. I can deal with that later, but they're supposed to have a locking screw on them. But again, the tires are worth $200, so they were used a little bit, but not too bad. The tread's really good on them still, so I'm going to change it over after we polish them up and see what it looks like.
There's a town on a river, nowhere South Dakota, where everybody knows my name. But here in the city, the Broadway lights are burning. Just another.
All right, you could already see there's the before and there's the after, and I mean that was just a few seconds of buffing on it here. So try to tidy it up as good as I can. It's not going to be perfect for sure, but so to just make it look a little bit better anyways. But that polish works amazing. I will say this is the bigger Powerball, and that thing works way better than the small one for getting into places. So I would recommend, if you're buying one, buy the big one. All right, guys, here's again a before and after. I just did a quick little buff with the old power wheel there, power ball, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, just a quick one pass over there. It took like less than a minute to do that, so totally worth doing that. Like I said, I'm just sprucing it up a little bit. It's not going to be perfect, but it'll look better than it did for sure. So if you notice, when I pulled it out, it had a little hiccup with the paper on it here, stuck to the roof. So I'm just going with light, getting it wet, and just basically taking a cloth, I guess a sponge, and just going all over it. And then I might have to wet sand a lot of this off of here, so probably just 2000 grit or something like that, and then possibly repolish it or whatever, but nothing too serious. It is what it is, just a little extra work, I guess. It's kind of a mistake on my part, but it happens. All right, guys, there you have it. Put some new wheels on it.
new front and rear bumper. When I say new, I mean all of this was used, but truck's painted. Need a couple little odds and ends yet, like the mirrors need to be put back on, probably get some chrome mirrors for it, or white maybe. But I mean, overall, considering where we started and where we're at now, this truck looks pretty good. I mean, like I said, I probably have $2,000 into this truck all said and done, if you don't include like picking it up and hauling it back. Like I said, you could still see there's some imperfections in the body. It's not perfect, but I mean, for a weekend cruiser, how much better could you get than that? This would be honestly, even just for like a kind of a work truck or whatever. So only other thing I would say that I would always probably do is put a bed liner in them. So I would have painted this one, but there was some complications with that, so I didn't want to mess around. And you guys saw we had some hiccups with the roof. That would be an easy repaint if I had to do it. I sanded most of it out, so it's not 100% perfect, but not too bad anyway. So overall, like I said, pretty happy. I mean, like I said, front and rear bumper put on it there. Gonna get the kids to do white inside the custom deluxe there. And like I said, overall, for the amount of money into it, it's got, like I said, some imperfections and stuff like that, but for, you know, a couple $1,000, I mean, and maybe you could probably spend a week tinkering away at it or whatever if you have time. You could have yourself like a weekend cruiser. So I think in my eyes, this is worth it. The truck's worth a lot more now that I've done this. So overall, pretty happy. This is a factory AC truck. Be a good cruiser if somebody threw some AC in it. So thanks for watching again, guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. This took me a lot of time overall because I'm always so busy. So if you guys subscribe to the channel, comment, all that stuff, it helps the algorithm. It helps me grow the channel. So appreciate all the support so far. Sorry it took so long to get this finished, but that's life. So remember, follow me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook, and I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching, guys.